everybody and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be painting on this canvas here, and this is a hexagonal canvas. I saw this recently in store and I was like, that is so interesting, and I instantly had an idea. So of course I had to get the canvas, and that's what we're doing today. Now, if you're interested where I got this canvas, it was actually $8 at my local Big W, which is a sort of like a department store in Australia here. And yeah, I just really love the idea of just canvases with like funky shapes. I've actually done like round canvases and heart-shaped canvases and stuff in the past, and I find them really fun. So without further ado, let's get in and make some art. Now to begin, I'm actually going to be doing something called grounding the canvas. I'm going to do a thin, watered down layer of paint and completely cover this canvas in color. And that's so that I can get rid of all of that empty white space, and it's gonna make my artwork look nice and unified and have that yellow color all throughout. To get the tone that I have, I mixed a little bit of yellow Hansa along with a little bit of a warm like orangey yellow color, and I think it turned out really nice. And I actually like how I left some little parts of the warmer orangey yellow in there to give it a little bit of a variance, so it's not like completely like a block color. There's a little bit of interest. Now, when I first saw this canvas, I instantly had an idea of what I wanted to paint on it, and that idea it was actually like bees and honeycomb, because honeycomb is in like this like repeating hexagonal pattern, and I just thought it would be really cool to paint like a honeycomb pattern on a hexagonal canvas and then have like dripping honey around the edges and have some like bees on it too. I just think that it would turn out really cute, and that is what I decided to go with instantly. Now, to get a repeating hexagonal pattern, I find the easiest way is to draw out a hexagonal shape on a piece of card and then cut it out and make sure it's like close to perfect as you can get it. And I had to do a little bit of like testing to make sure that it was right. And then once you cut it out, you can trace around it with a light colored pencil so it would show up on the yellow, and basically just repeat that pattern and keep drawing around all of these hexagons and like put them all together, and you end up with this really cool repeating pattern that looks a lot more complicated than it was to draw. Now, that is pretty much all of the sketching that I'm doing for this art, and I'm just going straight in with paint because I just find it really fun to paint with acrylic paints, and just like don't worry too much about sketching, kind of just go from layers. And the first layer I'm doing here is the background, so I'm just adding in a little bit more of an orange color. So we've got some cadmium orange and of course a little bit of that yellow orange color, and I'm just doing some different orange hexagons, and I'm trying to blend them a little bit so that they're not like properly they're not solid. There's a bit of like shadows and stuff blended in there that looks really nice and like organic. And I'm also adding in some lighter oranges, you can see here, just to make it look nice and natural, and each little cell has a slightly different tone, which just adds a little bit more interest into the background. After all of that was dry, it's time to go in and add in a little bit more shadow and highlights here. I'm starting off with some very thin shadows on some of the edges of these hexagons, and I'm trying to do it in pretty much the same spot in each hexagon and make sure that they're pointing the right way, and that's going to begin the 3D look that these hexagons are going to have. Now, the color I'm using for this is it's a transparent red oxide color, and I think it is a really nice sort of reddish brown color that works really well with the warm color theme, and looks nice and like natural still. Now, after I've got pretty much all of those done, I am going to do another layer of top here, and I'm just going to add in some white to all of the edges around the hexagons because I want to thicken that up a little bit and also just add more contrast to the piece and cover up as much of that white pencil as I can. Now it looks a little bit unnatural with completely white in this pattern, so I added in a little bit of yellow to that white, and I like went over a bunch of areas in the outlines of the hexagons, and just to add a little bit of color in there and a little bit of variance too, and I think it turned out really well. After this, I decided to go back into the shadows and just thicken up some of those shapes because they kind of got a little bit covered. And once that was all dry, it's time to have some fun. Now I mixed a little bit of that red oxide color with also a little bit of orange, and I used a lot of transparent glazing medium. And I basically made this transparent paint that I was able to glaze over the top, and this is the beginnings of the dripping honey, as you can see, and I think it turned out really cool. You can see like the shapes of the hexagons underneath the honey because obviously it is transparent, and that was a really nice base for me to start painting this honey. Now after I did that, I added in a little bit of that red oxide color with a bit more transparent medium and some water, and we are adding in some shadows to that honey to make it look really nice and rich and like colorful. And after this, I added in some even darker shadows. As you can see here, I'm just doing it on the edges, and I'm trying to accentuate the gloopy, drippy look of that honey, and I think it's turning out very cool. Now we are building up some nice shadows on this honey here, but I want to also add in some highlights too to make it look nice and shiny and like wet looking like honey. So I added in a bit of yellow here, and I'm just painting it on the brightest parts of the honey, and trying to accentuate some of the shapes as well for the drips, and just add a little bit of interest into the corners as well so they don't look like very dark. And I think the honey is turning out pretty well. Now just to go even further, I'm adding a very small amount of white highlights on this just to make it look really nice and shiny. If you didn't have the idea that this is a liquid yet, this should definitely help. And I'm just adding some little dots into the brightest parts of the highlights, and then some subtle like highlights that go towards each other so that it like all looks nice and bright and shiny. After that, it's time to start on the bees. Now the yellow colors that I have aren't the most opaque, so I'm going to go in and just add some layers of white first before I move on to the details of these bees. And to build up the bee body, I just did a very large sort of oval shape for the bee's abdomen, and then a smaller circle shape for its body, and then a small circle shape for its head. Now once that is dry, I'm going in with my paint pens now because I want to do some crisp, fine details, and I just find it so much easier to do this with a paint pen versus a small paintbrush. I'm not the most careful with paintbrushes, so this is definitely what's better for me. And just like all of the other aspects of this artwork, I'm working from back to front. So I'm doing the legs first, and then after this I am layering on colors on that white part for the body, and I'm using two separate yellows here, the warm orange yellow and yellow Hansa, to make a slight gradient on the bee's body, because I just think that it just adds a little bit more dimension to the bees and I think it looks cool. I'm also adding a slight circle gradient onto the bee's body and having a little bit of brown in the middle of that sort of body part of the bee, and I think that like little detail looks very cool. And later on I will go over and add some little fuzzy bits on there so it'll look nice and interesting. Once the yellow parts of the bee are complete and dry, I'm going over with my paint pen again to add the stripes of the bee. And I think that the way that I curved the stripes around the body shape to try and make it look 3D, like it's sticking out, I think that actually turned out really well and made the stripes really nice and interesting too. Sometimes it's little details like that which make your artwork so much better when it all comes together. After this, I want to go in and add some eyes onto these bees, and I'm just doing some little round circles, and as you can see here, I've already added the fluffy parts of its body. My camera wasn't filming at the time, it's such a shame, but I think that they turned out really cute and fluffy looking. And yeah, we're just adding some circles for the eyes here, and we have some little antennae and stuff too, and I think that they turned out really cute. I added some white highlights to the eyes, and honestly I think it kind of makes the bees look a little bit funny, but I think that they would have looked a little bit too flat if I didn't do that, so you know what, I do like it. Now after this, it's time to add the wings for the bees so that these little guys can fly. I'm just using a fine white paint pen and also a grey paint pen to do some transparent wings, and here is the final results for this painting. Honestly guys, I love this painting so much. I think I really captured the idea that I had when I first saw this canvas, and I think I did it pretty well, and I'm quite proud of this piece. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I had so much fun making it, and let me know in the comments below if you have painted on any interesting canvas shapes, or even just anything interesting really. I love hearing all about your art journey, and I love sharing my art journey with you guys as well. Hope you're all having a fantastic day. Please stay safe out there and take care, and I shall see you in my next video. Bye everyone.